Bonjour, je m'appelle Sean. Bienvenue dans le Sheehan show avec Sherdog.com. That's right. It's Bellator Paris this weekend, and we are back with another preview show, and it's good to get back to the old Bellator previews. We've been doing obviously a lot of PFL, a lot of One Championship and all, but you know, at the end of last year, we thought Bellator might be no more at one stage, and then the PFL obviously swooped in and took over and saved the day, and we've seen a lot of Bellator fighters obviously fight in PFL, and we've had obviously a couple of Bellator event / Bellator adjacent events, I suppose. But yeah, it's good to have it, and it's good to see probably Bellator's best fighter, you could argue, in the main event here as Patchy Mix takes on Magomedov for the second time. And just before we get into that, I think it's going to be interesting over this next period to see how Bellator, I suppose, rests in the MMA landscape, because we knew where it was before. It was clear what Bellator was before. You know, it was the number 2. It was the place that tried to, you know, sign a lot of good names. Maybe when they went away from the UFC, it was a place that tried to bring the best of the best through, and it had like a clear identity, a clear leader, whether that was Bjorn Rebney at the start or Scott Coker, and I think it always had a clear picture as well, even when it adjusted from the picture of, like, you know, the tournaments to the, you know, the Dada 5000, Kimbo Slice, Heist Gracie, Ken Shamrock type of days, till then the later on signing young, really talented wrestlers and other such, and then signing the likes of the Corey Andersons and Ryan Baders and others as well. And I think now its new identity is still developing. One thing I think that's very good for Bellator, because there's a lot of people, like even myself included, I'll admit it, have said, like, we're not sure what's going to happen with Bellator. Like, will Bellator be around in a year's time? I think most people would say it probably will. Will Bellator be around in 2 years' time? I think a lot of, you know, MMA pundits might be a little bit less sure than that. But what I do really, really like, if you go on to Sherdog.com, it's one of my favorite things about Sherdog. You click Fight Finder, the drop down says Bellator events, and let's do it here while we have it. So the first one that comes up, Bellator, May 17th, the one we're going to talk about. June 22nd in Dublin, which I will be at, hopefully. September 7th in San Diego. London, September 14th, October 12th, November 16th, and December 31st. How many shows is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shows. That is great. You know, it's great to have the future set for Bellator for a while, so that exactly what I was saying there about finding their place in the MMA landscape, like who like, is there going to be kind of a figurehead for Bellator? How are these cards going to look? Are they going to sign new people? And how, you know, how it's just going to rest, how it's going to find itself, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing that. Now, I think with the whole Bellator PFL deal so far, and we're just over 5 months into it, I think it's yet to find that voice in a new way. I think the PFL has had their opening salvo for the season, I suppose, with the 3 events, and they have looked similar to obviously last year's with the improved fighters, you would say. So that has improved. What have we had? One Bellator now coming up here as well. They have obviously changed a little bit with the way they have obviously the major one with the champion versus champion card, and I'm looking forward to seeing exactly kind of what happens. Who's going to be commentary in all these cards? Who's going to be the MC? Will it change? Let's say when we have 4 events, will we have the exact same people all the time, or will it change, or will it adjust? Very excited to see that, and it's as I said, it's more excitement and I literally no criticism at all whatsoever. I'm just excited to see how it works out and what way it goes. So with that said, let's get into the preview for this, and let's look at some of these fights. And I'm going to start with the main event of Patchy Mix versus Magomedov. And I suppose this is a kind of an easy one, I suppose, to talk about because they fought before. The full fight's actually up on YouTube. I went and watched it, and it was a very, very tactically easy fight to understand. we know what Magomedov is. You know, he's a very good takedown artist, an extremely good wrestler, and someone who just wants to take people down all the time, get on top of him, land a load of shots, and beat him that way. That's what Magomedov is. And that's exactly what he tried to do to Patchy Mix, right? And he was completely and utterly unsuccessful at it. He could not do it for even a second. And there's two reasons as to why he couldn't do it. And pretty simple how Patchy Mix won this fight. To explain, very obviously very not so simple to do. I certainly couldn't do it, and most bantamweights in the world probably couldn't do it, but Patchy Mix could because of his skill set. So two things he did. The first one, very simple, straight striking. And I think that is what has made Patchy Mix, these two things, not just the simple straight striking. I'll get to the second thing in a second. It's what's made Patchy Mix such a great and improved striker or a fighter over the last 3 or 4 years. Probably the most improved fighter in the world over, you know, it's hard to look past Alex Pereira. Okay, fair enough. But aside from him, or maybe even up there with him, Patchy Mix the most improved. And, you know, with that, you know, we kind of knew Patchy, whereas we didn't know Alex. But let's go with it for a second. So the straight shots, first of all, his jab looked so good. He stunned him with a jab at one stage. He hit him so hard with it. And the straight that comes behind it. So just very, very, very good. That straight, 2 straight shots, the backhand and the jab. Sometimes he falls over that backhand a little bit. And it's not so good. That's one thing that's, you know, coming on with him. But I think because, you know, fighting out of the southpaw position as well, against an orthodox fighter like Magomedov, you have, you know, people always talk about, I talked to Dan Hardy about it once, that extra little bit of reach and that more of a normality than the orthodox fighter has fighting southpaws, obviously, because they're less regular. And I think he did it very well. So the striking matchup there, I think Magomedov attempted to counter the jab a couple of times. It was very much unsuccessful because Patchy Mix has the lint as well. His lint is very important in that, so he used the lint well in terms of his size, but he also used the lint well in terms of the amount of distance he could reach and cover with the backhand, and the lint at which he could keep him with the front hand. How did Magomedov deal with that? Not very well in terms of the strikes. As I said, it wasn't very successful. The few counters he threw. The most success he had was with kicks to the body. Problem with kicks to the body is it gives Patchy Mix the ability to do part 2, which we will get to in a second, which kind of precluded Magomedov from having much success. I think that'll be very similar here. We'll talk maybe in a minute about ways that Magomedov can maybe adjust. But let's get to part 2. Part 2, what did he do with part 2? So part 2 of how Patchy Mix stopped the wrestling starts with the wrestling of Magomedov. He shot on him many times. I would say maybe 4 times. How long did this fight go? This fight went 7.5 minutes, just over. So he shot 3 or 4 times. And every single time, and I have a comparison here between Patchy Mix and Leon Edwards, which I make in a second. But this is very much a Leon Edwards move against Kamaru Usman the last time they fought. I always say it's the second time, but it's actually the third. In the final fight, instead of trying to stop the takedown, he tried to put himself in a position. So what Leon Edwards did against Kamaru Usman was he put himself in the best position to defend the second phase. So and most of the time, I believe, I'd have to watch it back. Most of the time, I believe it was the overhook. So he got himself in kind of an overhook position, went to the knee and pulled him up to an overhook, if I'm not mistaken. But sometimes I think it was an underhook position, pulled him up. Harder to get the underhook, obviously, in that position. So I'm pretty sure it was the overhook. But if you go back and watch that fight, and we've talked about it before, he very rarely stops the takedown, very much goes to his knees a few times, but the second movement from Usman is never to pull him to the ground. It's always won by Edwards because he has put himself in the right position in the first place. That's the exact same thing as what Patchy Mix does to Magomedov, but it's not a positional position, a defensive positional position. It's actually an attacking positional position because he just goes for the guillotine or different types of front chokes every time. He almost caught him every time. And when you have the choking ability of Apache Mix. You look at his record here, and he has a few guillotines, arm triangles, rear naked chokes, his knee bars and stuff in there as well, but a lot of chokes. There's a real and ominous danger there. So when you're going in on the takedown, a few different things happened. Actually, the 3 different ways that this can happen, right? One time he went for the takedown, caught his neck, and he gave up on the takedown, went to his knees, and they just stood back up. The next time he went for the takedown, got it. Mix went for the takedown, got it, and Mix swept him and landed on top and got back up. And the next time, went for the takedown, got caught in the guillotine, and got choked to sleep. Right? There was actually one more as well. There was one more, and I believe that was another kind of got him fully down and got swept as well. So the takedowns were completely unsuccessful because of the defensive offense, if you want to put it that way, of Apache Mix. And I think there might be a way forward on the feet for Magomed and Magomedov in somewhat. But on the ground, it's going to be very, very, very tough. You're going to have to attack different ways. You're going to have to take away the guillotine on entries. You cannot go for single legs in the middle of the cage. There's another part as well. That was the middle of the cage defense. The against the cage defense was your underhook, overhook, which he found pretty easy for the couple of times that he did it. But if you're going to the ground with Apache Mix, if you're taking him down, you're going to have to find different entries. It's going to have to, it's not going to be takedowns. It's going to have to be body locks. It's going to have to be throws. It's going to have to be, you see guys against the cage where they take the hips and they go around to the backside of their opponent and they pull them down to their knees and they get their back that way. That's the only way you're getting Apache Mix down without getting caught in something yourself, because his defense isn't to stop the takedown, it's to go for the choke. And that's an impossible game to play against him, right? So that's that. The striking side of it, I think there has to be more lint strikes for Magomedov. He's going to have to kick that leg. That's the first thing I think Magomedov's going to try to do here, or should try to do. And kick that leg, kick it over and over. Kicks to the body, as I said, the first one landed, but they're not working so well. He got caught up in the middle of the cage like that. Look, maybe the kicks to the body, if they do get caught, will lead to body locks, will lead to takedowns. So that would be a way forward if he chooses to do that. But in the last fight, the pushing against the cage only benefited Apache Mix. He won that every single time. He was able to stop it. I think there's a big issue in that Mix won the quick takedown attempt and the prolonged takedown attempt in the first fight. So one of them is going to have to be changed. I think the quick takedown attempt is almost impossible. But the prolonged one, I think the prolonged takedown attempt from Magomedov will have to be in a specific position. Not, as I said, a guillotine type of position. Going to have to be the back, the body lock. And that's a very specific way to win the fight. You're going to have to be ultra specific and win that one area to beat Apache Mix. I find it hard to see. I think Mix will land that jab again. I think he'll land that straight left. I think Magomedov can't go for a takedown. And I think Apache Mix will probably choke him again. I could see this time like Mix going for the sweep again, getting on top. Magomedov maybe giving up his back and Apache Mix getting the rear naked choke. So that's the prediction on this one. Apache Mix to get the finish again. Right, let's talk about the co-main event. And obviously in Paris, France, Cedric Doumbe is always one of the main guys. And he's coming in here against the very, very experienced Jaleel Willis at 16-5. We all remember Doumbe's last fight where he had the toe injury and Mark Adler stopped the fight. In my opinion, rightly so. Up until that time anyway, this fight was not great. His opponent back, he was kind of giving him all he could do. He could have lost the fight. And I think, so me personally, I've never really bought into the whole hype of Doumbe. I've enjoyed watching him and I love his knockouts and everything like that. But I think I probably have a more, logical and, less hyped version of Doumbe than most people, I think. Now, if you put me in there with Wonderboy or Michel Pereira, maybe I have that, but for Doumbe, not so much. And I think what we have with Doumbe is a guy who, against Jordan Zebo, didn't get enough credit for that brilliant win. Because Zebo or Zebo, good fighter. I watched a lot of him coming into that. It was only 9 seconds, but that was a legitimate win, a very good win. And I don't know if he got enough criticism for the Baki loss, based on the performance, not based on the finish, because everyone kind of concentrated on the finish and then maybe didn't talk too much about the actual performance. So he goes in here against Jaleel Willis, much more to me of an unknown. I'm sure the fans will be madly behind him, and the people at home who love the story of Cedric Doumbe will be madly behind him as well. Watched a bit of Willis, and I'm not sure if he is the guy to do it. You look at the record, and he's 16 wins, 5 knockouts, 11 decisions, 0 submissions, has been submitted twice. But he can fight on the ground. You know, he beat Kyle Crutchmere, stopped a lot of his takedowns. I watched that fight before we started here, and he did stop a lot of takedowns. One of his fights, I believe it was the Mendoza fight. I was actually possibly even, you know, maybe that one. He can get a takedown himself. You know, he's not bad on the ground whatsoever. But he is a guy, as we saw against Mohamed Berkamov, who will throw the shots. He comes out, throws big hands, is well able to counter the jabs of people, and will happily do that. Would he be as crazy to do that against Cedric Doumbe as you'd have to be? Based on what Doumbe did the last fight, I think he probably will. I think that fight wasn't great, but might have lulled people into like a false sense of security that they can strike with Doumbe. And if a lot of people are lulled into that, then there'll be a lot of people getting lulled into sleep. You know, a couple of minutes later by Doumbe's left hook or right hand or whatever it's going to be. I think Willis will go for a takedown a couple of times throughout the fight. I think Doumbe will be light enough kind of on his hips and on his feet to defend it, and I think it'll turn into a striking matchup. The one thing I would say about Doumbe is I don't think he'll be defensively libelous to a big knockout blow like what Willis throws. Now, sometimes he's a bit agricultural with him, and sometimes he can, you know, throw your good technical shots, but most of the big ones are, you know, that's why he doesn't have a lot of knockouts. I don't know if he's the best for setting him up. I don't think you're going to get caught if you're Cedric Doumbe like that. So then I think it turns into more of a Cedric Doumbe fight. You know, it turns into more of a technical fight, and if Doumbe lands the big shot, he lands a big shot and knocks him out. I think that favours Doumbe, and I'm going to go for Doumbe to win. As I said, I don't think Willis will come in with the big one. I don't think he's good enough to kind of outpoint him. Now, the takedown, if he can get it, absolutely. But no, I'm going for Doumbe in that. But that's, you know, I think there's other more exciting fights on not maybe not exciting, but intriguing fights on this card. One of whom is Gregory Babene against Costello van Steenis, who's, I think this has been pegged as like a number one contender here, if I'm not mistaken. Costello van Steenis is, you know, probably one of the most underrated guys in Bellator over the last while. He's had his losses. Okay, he lost to John Salter, and he lost to Douglas Lima last time out. But you know, he's beaten Fabian Edwards. Was out for 2 years after that. You know, we had COVID and everything like that, and that was a big issue because Fabian, you know, obviously got into the very, very top in that period and kind of held back Costello a little bit. And then Babene at the other side of it, I had the pleasure of being at a few of his fights. He's an absolute beast. He's won 8 in a row now. You know, that Mike Shipman one especially was very, very, very quick and and aggressive and violent, and that is how his fights have looked. You know, you look at those, what did I say, 8 fights, 7 of them had finished in the first round, and the other one was in the second round. And that's all you need to know about Babene, really. He is a big striker, throws everything at it, and will very well try to knock you out. Costello van Steenis, do you know what's funny, right? Because he's not that, right? He's more of a technical fighter, a tactical fighter. He will push you against the cage for long periods of time. He can wrestle. He can do it all. But he also does have, it's funny, I was watching there's like if you look up Costello Vancinas on YouTube, one of the first things that comes up is like a highlight, and you see in a lot of these fights where even the fights that have kind of gone a little bit longer, or fights that have gone to a decision. There's a lot of his fights have. He has another first round finish in his last 6 fights, but he has like big head kicks in there. He has these big kind of knockdowns, and even in fights, as I said, a lot of decisions there. 4 of his last 5 have gone to a decision. He won by Brabachuk in the second last fight, and he has that in his locker as well. But this is a guy who maybe doesn't get enough credit for how dangerous he is too. And I just wonder if he can kind of control the madness of Babene for a round or two, if that will play into it. That if he needs to, he can up it a little bit in the third, or if there is a moment that presents itself, he can go for it. Now, it might be dangerous against a guy like Babene, but I think, I'm not sure if the betting's up yet. I'll pull it up here in a second if it is, but I feel like this is the sort of fight where Babene will be the favorite, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think I have a bit of a soft spot for Costello Vancinas. I'll be honest. I like his style. I like how well rounded he is. I like how good of a fighter he is. He didn't show it now against Douglas Lima last time out, and a lot of people maybe thought Douglas Lima was over the hill at that stage. But I'm gonna go for Steenis here to win the decision. Maybe not the best of picks in terms of the crowd or in terms of the entertainment value for those watching at home, but I'm gonna go with Vancinas. And I'll probably be wrong. I'll probably be a first round knockout for Babene. If we get the betting odds and it's like 5-1 or something for Babene to get the early knockout, I could be betting on that too. But stay tuned to the betting show for that one. We have a couple of interesting kind of France versus the world matchups then after that. Yves Landau versus Jonas Bellarino. I saw a lot of people last week calling your guy Ruffy in the UFC the Brazilian Conor McGregor, but the real Brazilian Conor McGregor, Jonas Bellarino, is here and making his first sojourn into the big leagues. I suppose he got the opportunity on the Dana White Contender Series, got a spinning wheel kick in the third round. It was a stunning knockout, but didn't get signed, amazingly. If it had been a couple of years later, he absolutely would have. Lost one fight after that, but then won 2 in a row over an LFA, so now he gets the opportunity here. And if people don't know, Jonas Bellarino was the guy that Jose Aldo brought into camp to mimic Conor McGregor, basically. And he's a good fighter, a lot of knockouts, can fight in that very kind of, how would you say it, flowy way, you want to put it that way. Good power, good all-around striker, very, very good. Yves Landau is one of those lads I always come on here and call him a dangerous striker, and every time I do that, he goes to the decision. It's hard to not remember that Terry Brazier knockout, but that was back in 2020 with the flying knee. He got 1 knockout of Gavin Hughes since that, and it's been 4 decisions. So, like, that win over Piotr Niedzielski is a fantastic win, and if he can recreate that, like we've seen a lot of wrestling as well from Landau in that time. For Bellarino, I watched a bit of him, but I don't think I saw him against anyone of that level, so it's very tough to know how his wrestling will stack up if Yves Landau comes out and fights like that, which I think he probably will. I think we could see a lot of maybe far out striking here. You could see Bellarino throwing a few of his big shots, getting taken down, and we'll see how he deals with that. At the moment, I'd have to favour Landau on that one. And then the other matchup like that is Thibaut Gouti against Archie Colgan. Like, Colgan, watched him, a very good wrestler with a lot of finishes, obviously a lot of ground and pound, 5 knockouts, 1 submission and 3 decisions. The last 2 have been decisions, but Peter Bush, the last time out, he kind of wrecked him with takedowns, beat Emmanuel Sanchez before that. What a great win that was. But Thibaut Gouti comes in here, 37 years of age in France. This is a big fight for him. He beat Ken Moussa last time out with a beautiful knockout. Watch back that fight and he did so well. But like a lot of his fights, you could. I put him into Google, and one of his fights came up from, I don't know where it was, back. It was back a long time ago anyway. And he's the same fighter then as he is now, like wild, throws his hands, not at all unhappy with getting hit himself. Like, he's only been knocked out once in his career. Like, his last 3 losses, all via decision. He's only knockouts in 2006 to Chad Laprise in the UFC. You know, okay, he's been submitted a couple of times as well, but he's not an easy out at all. And if you're Archie Colgan, I think, you know, that's almost the game plan here. Go in, take him down, and that's that. You know, Guti will be throwing those mad hands, trying to knock him out before he gets him to the ground. I think the biggest problem with Guti, though, is he's a bit of too much of a crowd pleaser at times, and I think that will probably get him taken down against someone like Archie Colgan. Like Colgan, he's one of those guys at 9-0 as well. He doesn't know how to lose, and there's one big issue with him that a glaring issue that I saw. When he attacks, he's too confident, right? And attacks is the wrong word. When he I suppose just goes forward, when he tries to walk you down before he goes for the takedown, he just walks in there with no setup, no jab. Against a good fighter, is Guti that level yet? Maybe, but I maybe not yet. But Colgan needs to improve that. He needs to set up the entries way more, and it's not even entries because it's the pressure position. Like when he is fighting in the middle of the cage, he can jab and he can do whatever he needs to do, no problem. But when he has you pressured, he's walking forward against you, he's going to get countered one of these days, and it's going to be bad news for him. I don't know if Guti will be the guy, but that's definitely something to look out for here. I think Colgan will get enough takedowns to win the decision in this one. A guy to massively look out for here, guys, is Slim Trabelsi. He's fighting Louis Sutherland in the heavyweight division. Trabelsi, this guy is an utter beast. He was he wasn't the Aries champion. He beat Ryan Spillane coming out of here in Ireland. He has what was he? I think he was a high level wrestler, wasn't he, before he came into MMA? All like the top level heavyweights that were around the scene at the time. He was like, come on, yeah, I'll fight you all, beat them all. Fought Davion Franklin last time, beat him. Poor old Louis Sutherland is the guy that catches the name here. You know, he's a guy who hasn't enough experience. I don't think he's enough power. I don't think he's enough wrestling. I don't think he's enough anything for Slim Trabelsi. He's going to get destroyed here, I think. And watch Slim Trabelsi because he's very, very good. Then we have Mansour Banoui against Yusuke Yashi. What's a bit of Yashi? He's interesting in that I think he's almost the polar opposite of Banoui. Now, they're both well-rounded. Banoui is like this flowy fighter that kind of allows anything to happen, and it works against him sometimes, and it works for him some other times, and he wins most of his fights, but then fights like Bryn Primus will get away from him. I would put Yashi similar enough in terms of the way he fights to Primus, but maybe more technical of a striker. So watching him fight, very technical, defensive striker who doesn't throw an awful lot and has very good wrestling and is well able to get on top of you. And Banoui then, like, unbelievable on the ground, great wrestler, very good striking as well, but gets caught like people like Yashi. Like, is Yashi good enough though? Like JJ Wilson, I probably would have said the same. Is JJ Wilson good enough? I think his wrestling is probably better than Yashi, but Yashi's wrestling is very good as well. I just think maybe the submission game, the jiu-jitsu game of Banoui will be enough to see him through here. If he can get one sweep, getting top maybe, I think that could be money for him. Yashi's been submitted 3 times. He's been knocked out 5 times as well, but he's fought, up to nearly 40 times. So I'm going to go with Banoui in that one. But that's one, Yashi's fought in Risen for an awful lot. He fought once in Bellator back in the day, but difficult, He's lost some good guys, but he's won his last 3, beat Zach Sane a couple of fights ago. I think Banoui should have enough. I think Banoui should have enough in that one. One of the top prospects coming through was very, very impressed with him last time out was Iman Shafi Aliyev, and he's fighting the veteran Mike Shipman. Aliyev coming out of Dagestan, looked absolutely immense the last time when he won in round 1 in his first fight. I watched him a couple of times in EFC as well in 2022, and he hasn't fought actually since 2022, so it'll be interesting to see how he looks here. Mike Shipman then, again, beat Charlie Ward last time out after losing to the aforementioned Babene, and he can be a dangerous guy too, Ken Shipman, but having watched back that Babene fight, watch back the Costello and Steenis fight as well, it's going to be difficult to not see a guy like Aliyev, who has big power but also very good on the ground, good submissions as well. It's going to be difficult to see Aliyev not win that fight now. What's the story with Aliyev's injuries? Why is he being out for so long? I'm not sure, to be honest. And how is he going to look? This to me, there's no doubt about it. This is a clear step up. Like Sean Conor Fallon, the lad he fought last time out, is he's not of the level of a Mike Shipman. Like, he's a good win. He beat Colin Huckbody, which is definitely a good win, but he lost to Kyle Dawkins, and there's no other kind of known names on his record. So I think this is a step up, but I think Aliyev is well able for it, and I think he will win that fight pretty well. The last two fights, then, and no means least, Aspen Ladd is fighting this Katerina Shakalova, and by God, she is an absolute beast. The Shakalova, very strong and hits hard. Only one knockout in 8 fights, but and I think a lot of that is because she's knocking her opponents down and submitting them. She's 4 submissions in that, but she beat Diana Silva last time out. Maybe not her best outing, but I think she's a better fighter than that fight showed. But yeah, there's some of her highlights on YouTube, and she's an absolute tank and very good. And for Aspen Ladd, this is a big fight for her. She lost 2 of her last 3. Obviously she was over in PFL. The tournament not working out. It could be kind of lamb to the slaughter here. This doesn't feel like a setup match for Aspen Ladd, if we want to put it that way. A setup for her to win. So a massive fight for Aspen Ladd, and if she loses this, it could be a long way back to the top. So massive fight for her there. I think she's going to have to use her wrestling here, but we've from watching a bit of Shakalova, look, a lot of her fights are her dominating with the striking, so maybe we don't see a whole lot of it, but she seems to be very good on the ground from what I've seen of her. I'm not sure if Aspen Ladd's technical striking is going to be enough to stop the powerhouse of Shakalova, so I think I'm probably going to pick Shakalova now, depending on we'll see what the prices are. But I'm very excited about the opening fight here between Acela Juge 7-1 and Bruno Fontes, who is 7-0 coming out of Brazil. Obviously Acela Juge from France, but trains out of SPG. I asked Peter Queally once who's the next best guy coming through at SPG Ireland, and he told me Acela Juge. After one of his fights recently, his father had him up to run 10k at 7 a.m. the next morning. This guy puts a lot into it, and it's very, very, very good. Remember last time I was at Bellator Dublin, Big John McCarthy comes up to me and goes, who's the one guy on this card? And I goes, Acela Juge, and he goes, I agree. He was talking to someone else, and he was like, Sean and I was like, yeah, it's Acela Juge. This guy is legit, really, really, really is legit. But Font absolutely is as well. He's a very, very, very good fighter. Watched his fight against Thierry Lucas. It lasted 4 minutes. It was back in 2022. He hasn't fought actually since 2022, when he had all but one of his fights. And Thierry Lucas is a dangerous guy. Good fighter, landing big shots, and he just kind of hit him with a body shot and knocked him out with a liver kick. This guy is just dangerous. He is the type of guy I think you need to be very, very careful of. I think Acel is probably a better technical fighter, but this guy will take technique out of the equation with one big shot if he needs to. And that's interesting. I'm interested as well to see how much he has improved. As I said, it's December 2022 was the last time he fought. So, it's 18 months rather than 2 years, but still, that's a good time out for a guy who's 29 years of age. He had, as I said, all but one fight in 2022. The other fight was in 2018. So really, he's only been a pro for a year, as a fighting pro for a year, and in two more years after that, obviously coming into now. So interesting there. Acela Juge is the exact opposite of that. He's been fighting a long time. Okay, he's only a pro since 2020, but he did the amateurs and the IMAFs in 2018. He's had, fights in 3 fights in 2023, 2 fights in 2022, 1 fight in 2021, 2 fights in 2020, the amateurs in 2019, 2018. He fought as well, being active, more active. So we'll see the difference, and we'll see which wins out in the end. But that is the preview for Bellator Paris. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, please give a thumbs up, and let me know what you think in the comment section below as well. I will leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.